Persona 3 is a game I've wanted to see a remake of for a very long time. The original game was the quintessential subversive RPG that went against many of the genre's most overused tropes and really tried to do something different. The game was an RPG, but also a life simulator, having you play as a high schooler with special powers who fights shadows with his classmates at night. Most importantly, it was a game that strived for realistic writing above all else, throwing you into a world full of characters whose lives don't revolve around you, which has never been seen in an RPG before. The writing, I think, is much deeper than that of Persona 4 and 5, and this, along with the game's charming simplicity, made it a blast to play. I would probably consider it the best game in the series if it wasn't being held back by outdated mechanics, annoying quality of life issues, and occasionally feeling as empty as a forgotten MMO server. So when Atlus announced Persona 3 Reload, a true remake of this legendary game for the modern age, I was totally on board. If they could somehow take the original game with all of its strengths and fix all of the little flaws, it could very well be one of the best RPGs of all time. So did they pull it off? Well, I'm here to tell you that this remake adds a whole lot to the Persona 3 experience, but it also takes away a bit. For the most part, this is a very faithful remake of the original game. Nothing major has really changed at all. The original game's cutscenes, social links, and dialogue are pretty much exactly how you remember them. Not only that, but the world of Persona 3 is faithfully recreated with impressive attention to detail. When you first step foot on Port Island, you'll notice how smooth and responsive it feels to control your character, and just how amazing everything looks. Familiar locations from Gekkoukan High School to the shopping districts are meticulously detailed, now with actual NPCs roaming around, making them feel more busy and hectic compared to the original game. I especially like how during the monthly full moon operations, the world is drenched in this green Mountain Dew light, with even the character portraits being affected, having a green hue on them. You see, it's not just the environments that look amazing, the characters do too. Yukari, Junpei, Akihiko, Mitsuru, and company all look so detailed and expressive, maintaining everything I love about their original designs brought into the modern age. But where this remake really shines is in the character animations. I mean, just look at some of these animations. They went absolutely crazy with this game. These have got to be some of the best looking animations and facial expressions I've ever seen in a 3D anime style game by far. So much detail went into this game, especially when it comes to the dorm. One favorite aspects of Persona 3 was always how the game really captured the dorm lifestyle and that feeling of living with a bunch of people you don't really like. In this game, the party members all live together in the same building and are forced to get along, so you basically have all these clashing personalities living together for a whole year. Sort of like a dysfunctional family that fights monsters instead of arguing about who does the dishes. Each day when you return from school, you'll find your friends scattered throughout the dorm doing various mundane activities, eating, reading, texting, or occasionally staring at the wall like they're having a midlife crisis. Every day your friends have something new to say, and the game tracks what you haven't heard yet with these handy word bubbles telling if you've exhausted their dialogue, so you don't waste your time talking to Junpei for no reason. I always really liked this part of the game because it makes your party members feel like their own individual characters rather than NPCs, which is something that Persona 3 really excelled at. Now, the dorm life was very limited in the original game. You originally only had a few things you could do at night, either go grind in Tartarus or hang out with this old fat bald guy. Now, there's actually things to do. Rooms and areas that were locked off in the original are now available for you to explore. There's actual activities you can do with your friends to make up for the weird lack of social links in the original game. You can watch DVDs with Yukari, you can use the kitchen and make tea with Mitsuru, you can read books with Aikis, bro. You can garden with Junpei. Actually, don't do that. If you garden with him, your vegetables actually turn out worse than if you do it yourself, so it's probably better to just get Fuka to help instead. But still, it's cool that there's actually things to do now, and to add to that, there's even these new Link episodes which are unique story chapters for each of the male party members that give you some much needed downtime with them since they don't have social links in the original game. These are also missable, so you have to be sure to keep an eye out for them or you'll miss out on some quality time with the bros. And on top of all that, you can now do solo activities at night like using the computer, working part-time jobs, and utilizing the many new facilities in the mall. They really did a good job addressing the original game's shortcomings by adding content in places where the original was lacking, making for a more complete feeling experience that is still true to the original game's story, which I think is exactly how a remake should be. I like what they've done with the dorm overall, but there is one thing about it that bothers me. The whole place is weirdly bright now. It feels like someone replaced the dim, moody lighting from the original with fluorescent bulbs straight out of an IKEA showroom. The original dorm had this dark, dingy lighting that perfectly matched the game's atmosphere. Now, it looks way too bright and colorful, losing that gritty, realistic atmosphere that defined Persona 3. Even the dorm's furniture has less detail for some reason. It's bizarre how the rest of the game world looks fantastic, yet they somehow dropped the ball with the most frequently visited location. Outside of the dorm life, you of course have the franchise's signature social links. which this game was the first to introduce. And you will be happy to know that they're all pretty much the same as before, except now they're fully voiced for the first time in the series, which I really appreciate.
I guess this isn't the best place for a long conversation, huh?
Every character you know and love is back and better than ever. And every character you hate is also back, like this annoying fat slob who might actually be one of the worst characters in gaming history.
Well, would you want to be my younger brother?
Thankfully, I don't associate with him. No, I'd rather hang out with the ladies of Persona 3, and when it comes to the dating sim portion the series is famous for, they actually made some very good changes. In the original game, you'd unintentionally be considered dating a character halfway through their social link, kinda like real life. While in Reload, they made it much clearer where you stand. These changes are nice, though I will say I kinda miss the social link reversal system from the original game, where you could have a falling out with a character and you'd have to make up with them. You see, in the original game, you could actually get caught cheating on your girlfriend, which sounds like a very cool feature, in theory, until you realize the feature didn't work at all, and they would constantly accuse you of cheating if you didn't hang out with them for like a week. So instead of fixing this mechanic, they decided to scrap it altogether, which is very unfortunate because I kinda like pointless drama. Now, while they do take away a little bit here, the game does enhance the daily life section of the game greatly. In Reload, you have a cell phone that lets you organize your activities, which lets you know who you can hang out with, what jobs you can work, and other happenings that day, which is an amazing addition. You can also save anywhere now, fast travel is streamlined, quest tracking is better, there's a text log now, and you can use that handy network button to cheat on all the exams. It's like they looked at almost every little issue the original game had and fixed them, making for a very refined experience. They just overall improved and added so much when it comes to the daily life section of the game. But how does the game improve on the battles? So Persona 3, you of course have Tartarus, this massive, mysterious tower full of villainous shadows where you do all of your training at night, and they did a pretty good job of keeping that risk-reward system from the original where you grind for hours, climbing floor after floor, collecting tons of loot and leveling up your personas, only to get one-shotted by some random asshole and having to start all over again. Persona 3 fans know this feeling too well. These are moments I call Persona 3 moments, and these Persona 3 moments are what defines the Persona 3 experience, so I am so glad they retained this in the remake. And while Tartarus is very similar to before, it's also a bit different. For starters, everyone's got these swanky new Cease battle uniforms which look super badass, but more importantly, the structure of Tartarus has changed. The layouts are now more complex and maze-like. There's more things to break and collect, treasure to find, and the shuffle time system is completely revamped with added bonuses inside and outside the Dark Hour, and you even have these monad doors with mini-bosses for an additional challenge. That's not to mention all the random challenges you might face on each floor. These changes turn a previously monotonous dungeon crawling system into one that I think is very, very addicting. One thing I really like is that your party members now have these conversations that just randomly pop up while you're exploring Tartarus, and the game really likes to call you out sometimes.
Oh hey, looks like you're the only guy on the team tonight.
I see. So this is what you would call a harem, correct? According to my data, every single man in the world fantasizes of having one.
Wait, is that what you're angling for?
I love this addition since it gives your party so much life. It is so entertaining seeing them bounce topics off each other like this. There's so many of these conversations for any combination of characters you might be using. There's gotta be thousands of them, and it almost sucks that there's no way to track them or initiate them yourself, and if you get into a fight during one of them, they get cut off and you might never hear them again. It definitely feels like they should have paid more attention to this part of the game. Now, I will say the combat is a lot easier than before. Even on hard mode, this game is extremely easy compared to the original, which itself was a very challenging game. The combat overall is completely revamped to be up to the standards of the modern Persona games, and this comes with some brand new features. This game now has Persona 5's baton pass mechanic, which lets you pass your move on to another party member when you hit a weakness, which makes some boss fights that used to give me a hard time into an absolute joke. And that's not even mentioning the new theurgies, these special moves everyone gets access to that consolidate certain abilities from the original, like the fusion spells, Fuka's Oracle ability, and Aegis's Orgia mode. Not only do they look great in action and do a ton of damage, but you also charge them up by repeatedly using some skill a character excels at, and as a result, it's super easy to just wreck the bosses by using these. There's even a new rewind feature that lets you go back in time, preventing potential soft locking, which was a real threat in the original game. So yeah, it's overall a much easier game than the original, and the brutal difficulty of the original game was something I always appreciated and considered part of the game's identity. identity, so it's probably best to go with merciless difficulty on this one. So I've gone over how Persona 3 Reload adds a ton of content to the original game, and with that said, you might think it's better than the original in every way. However, sadly, the game also takes away some things I liked about the original, so I'm conflicted. A few of my favorite mechanics from the original game were sadly removed in this remake, one of which being the scouting feature, which allowed you to split up your party members and have them just run around the floors by themselves, fighting shadows and collecting treasure, which is a really cool mechanic that lets you crush through floors, and it, again, made the characters feel like their own individuals. This mechanic was also cool because you could be a jerk and leave your knocked out party members behind, and they would have to go back to the dorm to recover, which ties into my absolute favorite mechanic that got cut, the fatigue mechanic. You see, in the original game, your party members had status conditions, and they would actually get tired and become less efficient if you grind in Tartarus too much in one night. This was one of the coolest mechanics in the game because it gave its characters a sense of realism, which is a huge part of Persona 3's identity. This added more challenge to the grind and it encouraged swapping out party members with ones you don't typically use, so everyone will be pretty well balanced for the most part. There was just something really immersive about seeing your buddies worn out after a long night of grinding and having to let them recover. It's dumb that they removed this feature, especially since it connected the real world gameplay to the dungeon crawling. In order to offset being tired or sick, you'd have to take naps during class, use the bathroom, or skip out on studying for a night. It was really cool seeing the two sides of the game have some cause and effect on each other. It really bridged things together nicely, and now that aspect of the game is totally gone. And that doesn't even begin to describe some of the bigger issues I have with the game. Being a remake, they of course took some liberties with the original source material. There's less choices now. In the original game, you could choose from multiple different clubs to join, while in the remake, you can only join track and the art club. And this is unfortunate because that was one of the few actual choices you're given in the game, and they just took it away. And they didn't just take away a few choices. They also made some key changes when it comes to the game's presentation, starting with the voices. So in the English dub, they recast pretty much everyone for some reason, and while the new voices are fine, they're still not as good as the original. The only real upgrade is Fuka, who's actually a lot better, but considering her original voice was one of the worst voices in human history, that's not really saying much.
There are two enemies.
And it's weird because a lot of them sound very similar to the original cast, but there's just something off about their delivery. It's like they're trying not to be too loud or something. Some iconic scenes just do not hit as hard as they used to.
More like Stupe, ace defective.
More like Stupe, ace defective.
I won't stand by and do nothing if there's a chance we can save her.
I'm not just gonna stand here and do nothing. If there's a chance we can save her.
The paper on the wall says, do things 5 minutes early. Therefore, I woke you up 5 minutes prior to the triggering of your alarm clock. 5 minutes early is on time. That is the phrase posted on the wall, so I woke you 5 minutes before your alarm clock engages.
They even took out some iconic lines.
Enemy annihilated. I need your help!
It's pretty unfortunate overall. I also want to mention the music. The original game had an amazing high-energy soundtrack with killer instrumentals and some of the best vocals in JRPG history. The soundtrack this time around adds a lot of new tracks, some of which are pretty good, but they also redid a lot of the classic tracks, and man, it just does not hit as hard as it used to. I mean, just listen to this. The new vocalist isn't nearly as good as the original, not even close. All I can say is that maybe the looping is better, but overall the fact that we can't use the original game's soundtrack is a huge missed opportunity because it is obviously better. And it's not just the soundtrack that lost its impact. The game's visuals are overall very impressive. However, in terms of the art direction, the game is still missing a little bit of that raw personality that made the original stand out. The new character portraits are really great, but they've lost some of their soul. There's just less expression here. Junpei's goofy grin, now it's just a polite smirk. Yukari's annoyed expression, it is now quiet frustration. Fuka's bewildered panic, mild concern. They didn't really capture the expressiveness of the original game's 2D art, and this is really unfortunate because the 3D characters look really amazing. It's like they focused so much on making the models detailed that they forgot to give the portraits that same energy. So is Persona 3 Reload a good remake? Honestly, I think it is for the most part. This remake addresses a lot of issues the original had, and it adds plenty of new content that gives the game more depth. This game just brings me back to an era of JRPGs I miss so much, one that took risks, experimented with different gameplay mechanics, and wasn't afraid to be different. Despite some of the game's few downsides, it is definitely the best way to play the game these days, and a very rewarding experience with a ton of replayability. That, along with its charming simplicity, makes it my go-to Persona game these days, so I would highly recommend it. If you enjoyed this look at Persona 3 Reload, you should definitely check out some of my other Persona videos, starting with this one right here. I think you'll definitely enjoy it. I'll see you there.